All right, guys. Well, welcome back to another edition of Slam Podcast. My name's Alex Castro. I am the principal at the Academy for GOD, but I have the lucky fortune to actually be part of Slam's staff this summer as a Slam associate. And this is my buddy Chris Thurey. I'll let him introduce himself, and then we'll get going with introductions of you two.
Yeah, my name is Chris Jones, and I am actually the chaplain for the Institute of Global Outreach Development, or GOD. So I work with college students here throughout the school year, and then in the summers I do volunteer for Slam as well. And this week, at least, I'm volunteering with Late Nights, which is the games and activities at night. This is probably the most respectful I've looked this week, I think. So happy to be here with y'all. And could you guys introduce yourselves?
Yeah, so my name is Willie B., and I'm the youth pastor out at Mount Tabor United Methodist Church out in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. No, my birth name is not Willie B., but it's my most common name. My name is Will Bush, but nobody likes those, official government names. Plus, I always like to tell people, once you spend enough time with me, you'll realize that I'm definitely not a Will, and I'm a Willie B., but I've had the distinct honor and privilege of being with the two other guests that'll appear on this podcast, and just being able to be with them for their senior year. And so with that being said, I'm going to pass the torch over to Mason.
Hey, as Willie introduced me, I'm Mason. I've been a student of Mount Tabor United Methodist Church and our youth group Fusion for the past 7 years, and it's been really a joy and a gift and experience to be with Willie throughout this year, and I'm happy to be on this podcast.
That's great. Fun fact, the way that I was introduced to who Willie B is that I was like, well, who's Willie B? I just kept hearing Willie B, and some of your youth leaders are like, the guy that looks like Shaggy.
Yeah.
And I was like,
That's funny.
all right. Then I picked you out of a lineup very easily, man.
That's funny.
So-
I actually felt nostalgia when he told me his name, because I'm from Atlanta, and we had this famous gorilla at the zoo Atlanta named Willie B. He lived for 40 something years, and he was like an icon. So he said Willie B. I was like, dude, you're like the gorilla, bro. So it brought some warmth to my heart from my hometown.
I mean, you're just getting it all from different angles.
I'm a multi-generational icon, basically. I'm gorilla. I'm part, animated character that turned live action.
Yeah, Mr. Mobile.
I can just do a little bit of it all. So.
Yeah. So Willie, let me know, how did you hear about Slam? Like, how did you get connected with the program? What was that? Give me that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came in, and fun fact, I had actually never been on a mission trip as a youth. Like, I went on all of our retreats that we did. We would go to Montreat Conference Center, and because I grew up Presbyterian, so we'd go there, and they'd have 1,000 kids. It's like the big deal in the Presbyterian church,
Yeah.
And so I did that, but I never went on the mission trips. Because I was definitely kind of a much more bratty child and a little bit spoiled. And I was like, I'm not going to go do manual labor. That seems boring. I want to stay inside and my AC and, this, that, and the other. But anyways, so when I got to Mount Tabor, I won, obviously you have to lead mission trips. And so kind of my goal for the future of our mission trips is just to kind of have this, this method of doing like a middle school mission trip that is more of your, I guess, kind of stereotypical Habitat for Humanity, where you build things and you get to build it, you look at it, you see, oh, awesome. And then you have the relational aspect there.
Yeah.
And for the high schoolers, I wanted to kind of dive into the more philosophical idea of what it means to be the hands and feet of Jesus. So I was just looking at different urban related ministries, because that's a place that's heavy in my heart. I kind of found my call into ministry through urban ministry, and in particular at Haywood Street Congregation out in Asheville, North Carolina. So not Nashville, Asheville, just remove the N.
Yeah.
And so that being said, like, I really wanted to just have this moment, that way folks can, do different projects where you may never see the fruition of your work, but you still have to know, you still understand that you were being the hands and feet of Jesus. You were doing and kind of living into that calling exactly. So with that idea, Slam was perfect for it. And then also, just to be completely honest, as a youth pastor who had never been on a mission trip, I was like, oh, and they program in the evening? Fine by me. Let's throw it all together. Let's wrap it up.
You got those late nights.
Exactly. But then also, like, when I talked on the phone with Kevin, I mean, it was just such a genuine connection. Like, me and Kevin,
so sincere.
We laughed. I mean, we would be on the phone and it would be like about something semi-serious. And the next thing we know, we're talking for an hour and a half. It was just like every time that we were on the phone, I sure hope that he didn't have anything important on his schedule, because it was just getting blown through, because we were just going to be chatting for a while. And
no, Kevin's got the gift of gab, man.
Oh, exactly. So that's kind of how we got connected with Slam.
That's awesome.
And how has it been since you've been here the past few days?
I think it's been good. You know, it's definitely we've had our ups and downs. Quite literally on the trip here, our bus broke down.
Oh,
Oh,
goodness.
wow.
And so, but I think the best thing has been that there has been a lot of uncomfortability. You know,
Mhm.
obviously you go on some of these mission trips, and it's sometimes like people kind of go on mission trips with their church group, and it's kind of for like the retreat aspect of it. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yes, it's fellowship, which is great. I'm a firm believer in fellowship, but I'm also a firm believer in always kind of living in a sense of uncomfortability. I
Yeah.
think whenever you follow Jesus, you kind of get rid of your comfortable lifestyle and you're just willing to kind of go with the flow. And so for my perspective personally, the idea that kids have been kind of put in some different uncomfortable positions that they've had to learn to, you know, kind of go with the flow, that they might not have every single detail structured out, and that's okay. In
Mhm.
particular,
Yeah.
we've been working at the kids camp, and there's no way that you can have structure there. And I'm sure Mason will kind of allude to that a little
Yeah.
bit, and so will Drew. Like, if we tried to play structure, all we would do is we would crumble and burn ourselves out, because
Yeah.
then we're making it about ourselves.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I think it's really just kind of flipping that switch of, this is not about us. You know, yes, we are technically the service providers,
Yeah.
but even in that, we must listen to the needs. We don't necessarily know better. We're not, you know, otherwise then we come in on this high horse and we just think, oh, blah, 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 blah,
Mhm.
blah. We know how to do this and we know how to run this.
Yeah.
You know, no, you've got to let them, and you got to listen to the people and allow them to kind of dictate your schedule. And so I think
Yeah.
that's been really helpful.
Yeah, Mason, what about you with regards to the schedule? Like, how's that been for you guys? Because I know it's, you know, it's an early wake up, and then it can go all the way through late nights, and you're scheduled out throughout the entire day. Was that something that you expected?
No, I didn't expect it at all. I mean, but it's actually been a pretty pleasant surprise. I mean, I we kind of enjoy almost not having, you know, this. We enjoy essentially being able to know what we're doing, but also
Mhm.
at the same time kind of not know what we're doing. You know,
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Like Willie was saying, with not being like not stepping out of your comfort zone.
Mm.
You know, okay, yes, you have a plan, but if you don't, you know, you don't know the plan, but
Yeah.
you know, it's, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
I think Slam, one of the things that we talk about a lot is the fact that you need to be flexible. Like that's like a huge thing, and it comes in a lot of different forms. With regard to like service projects, even like you guys are alluding to, that you guys might have a plan, but all of a sudden it's like, hey, that might not have worked, but this kid is still happy to see me, and we got a soccer ball here, and let's play. So with regard to even the service projects, how has that experience been for you? And like in terms of like what you've been able to do while you were there.
Yeah, so the service projects are, I mean, every trip you go on, they're obviously the most important part, but sometimes I think we just take for granted almost just how important they are. I mean, I'm going to take an anecdote here from the other day. We were serving at this place called Horizon, and we were having this kids camp, and there was this one little boy named Darwin, and when we were serving, there was this language barrier. Fortunately for me, I've taken 7 years of Spanish, and I can pick up a thing or two, and
Mhm.
I was able to talk with him, and I was able to get through to him, and I was able to make a genuine connection. And I was gonna start walking away and, you know, trying to, you know, introduce him to other new people. And
Yeah.
I started to walk away, and he grabs my hand. He says, "Where are you going? You're my friend." And it was at that
Mm.
moment I just kind
That's
of
awesome.
realized, even if he never remembers this moment again, in this moment, I am so important to him
Mm.
Yeah.
that he's willing to just open up his whole heart and just accept me. And
Man,
I think that's just beautiful.
that is, man.
And
That's very
he will
beautiful.
remember it, man. That's what's really profound about the service of youth groups coming here to serve these these communities. Is like it really means so much to these kids. I was a chaplain at a hospital for a while in Atlanta, Children's Hospital, and one of the books I read for part of my education was is called Pastoral Care for Children. But it really highlighted how kids look up to their parents as authority figures, but they need adults to be heroes. Like they need
Yeah.
other adults to be heroes in their lives. And so for you to like take the time out of your life, which other people aren't doing, to give him that kind of attention, you become a hero to him. It's really
Yeah.
special.
I think it's really cool too, because like what you're also doing is you're instilling an attitude of service into a younger generation. One of the things that we like to highlight here is even the idea that the older serve the younger. And so now maybe this moment might spark something even in him to be like, man, I got to serve
Mhm.
other people and take care of the younger students. Because I remember that one guy that one time that I said was my best friend or whatever. And it was because he was there and he showed up. And that's
Mhm.
amazing. And I'm so glad that you had that experience.
Do you feel like God's been speaking to you or in your youth group since you've been down here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think the bus just broke down on its own. I think he was
Even
definitely
from the
doing something.
beginning, huh?
I mean, I think it's always said God works in mysterious ways, and
Mm.
you know sometimes you just have to look for it. But yeah, He's absolutely been here through with us through this whole time, and you know, it just these service projects they really just allow us to seek Him out and
Mhm.
be able to just explore just how amazing He is.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. Well, Mason, thank you so much for taking the time to be on this podcast. We're going to call up Drew right now. Drew's however you want to get up here, my man. But Mason, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time that you've given us in the story
Yeah, thanks
about
so
Darwin.
much.
That was so awesome.
Thank you.
And Drew just army crawled his way up
Yeah,
here
just
into
really,
this.
being sensitive to the camera. That's
Mason's
good. Yeah,
doing
on
it
stage,
out.
off stage.
I think Mason's Army Crawl beat yours out, Drew.
Well,
But
he did
yeah.
want to go to West Point for a little bit,
Yeah,
so I'll
he's
give him that
got the
one.
Yeah.
shoulders,
True.
you know.
But you walked so he could run.
Yeah.
But in crawling terms.
Yeah. So Mason, I'm not Mason. Sorry, that was Mason. Drew,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about yourself, age, anything that you'd like to say.
So I just recently turned 18.
Heyo.
Hey, nice.
I just graduated from high school. I'm going to App State University to study education.
Nice.
And this summer and last summer, this is actually where I got to know Willie B. I work at a Christian Methodist camp up in Hendersonville called Camp Toccoa. And
That's awesome.
not gonna brag, but my mom is the reason Willie B is at this church right now.
Okay, so
Take a little credit here.
so
on this.
he kind of owes you a little bit too.
Oh, a little bit, but we'll call it even. He puts up with me a lot, but
Yeah, more than I'd like to.
no, I dedicated my entire summer to Toccoa this year and last summer, and it's just an amazing place.
That's great.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Dude, it's pretty cool, man, that you and we talked a little bit about this the other day, but you're working at the camp all summer and you're taking a week off, whereas a lot of folks your age maybe be like, I'm going to the beach, because you're
Yeah.
about to move to the mountains.
Yeah.
But you didn't do that. You came to serve this week. What moved in you to want to come serve instead of taking a week to just chill?
Well, this is my last ride. This is probably the last trip I'll go on the youth or with the youth, but it's just one of those things where I want to continue that mission, and I didn't know how I was going to serve. I didn't know I was going to be at Horizon this week for a little bit of the
Mhm.
portion, just doing the same thing I do, but we'll get to that later. But it's a different experience with these
Yeah.
kids.
Mm.
But I don't know. It's just felt called to do it, just to give back.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What's different about serving here with these kids?
Now,
So-
it's later now. We want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much time has passed.
We brought this up in our debriefing group.
Yep.
It was yesterday that the kids that at Toccoa, you send your kid, you pay for them to be there, you get them out there. We show up to Horizon. Your kid, you don't have to send your kid outside. They
Yeah.
choose to be there, and them choosing to be there means they want us to play with them. They want us to have fun with them, and it's a whole different experience. Now, I didn't get take Spanish for 7 years, so. When the kids started speaking for the first time, I was like, I have no clue what is happening. But over the week, I've gotten, just by Mason saying things, I've gotten to understand them a little more. And even if I don't know what they're saying, I can just be like, hey, you want to do this instead? And then half the time they'll be like, yeah, I was saying that. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, we can still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you learned anything about communication style? Because communication comes not just from the verbal output, but have you used different communication techniques to get your point across, like using your hands and
You can,
emotions?
one thing I've learned, and this is especially even at Camp Toccoa, especially with homesick kids, I've learned is it's not all about the words you're saying. It's about your facial expression and your
Mhm.
body.
Mhm.
So, there's this one kid yesterday that there's a little feud, and he was sitting down on the concrete, and I went up to Mason and I was like, hey man, what's going on? And he goes, I don't really know, that he won't talk. So I go up there and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he wouldn't talk to me. And I'm pretty sure he didn't speak good English. So I didn't really know what was going on. So I took off one of my bracelets, this one right here. And I was like, hey, I learned this one from Willie B actually. I was like, hey man, you see this right here? It can be anything you want it to be. And I was like, Sean, it can be an instrument. It can be like a little slingshot thing. And he played with it. And then 2 minutes later, he was up and running around again. It's just stuff like that where I'm glad I was a camp counselor.
Wow.
That's awesome. That's
Way to
awesome,
be
man.
sensitive to the moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you've had an opportunity to listen to some of the messages, to engage in late nights with Chris here.
Mhm.
Is there anything that has stood out to you about either a message or even something that Chris was able to get a point across with, even some of the late night fun stuff?
The late night fun stuff has been absolutely amazing. We went to Nashville 2 years ago with a different organization, and the late night, they didn't have late nights. They just sent us off to bed, and we were like, okay, what do we do now? But late, like now it's like, oh my gosh, like last night we had like the bracket games, and that was amazing
Yeah.
because you get to like cheer for your teammates, you get to like have fun and stuff. But I don't know. I think Ty's messages this week have been truly amazing. Just, he's a great speaker,
Yeah.
and
Shout out to Ty Matthews,
Yeah.
wherever you are.
What are you hearing from Ty's messages? Like, what are you getting?
Just what was that one about? It was
Your pastor proud here. Tongue
Yeah.
twister.
trying to
He's
think.
he's cringing currently.
I know he's
Oh,
cringing.
I'm not cringing. I'm laughing.
He's putting me on the spot right
difference.
now. Well, we were talking about he said something, I can't remember it, but he said something yesterday that sparked something in our small group about us going out into the world after the mission trip. And how just because we're not on the mission trip anymore doesn't mean our missions stop, and doesn't mean we just go back to our old lives.
Mhm.
And we got to continue going and serving God. And yeah, it's going to be more difficult because you don't have that organized, great plan that
Yeah.
SLAM provides for you, but you have to go out and make it for yourself, and you have to stay in touch with God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's something practical that you think that you can do once you leave here to maintain that?
One of my youth leaders last night in the small group said, just going around to elderly folks, even if like your grandparents or like just someone like distant family or just anybody like your neighbors or something, and just going out there and being like, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Can I do something for you? Or just sitting there and talking to them, because it means a lot to them, because sometimes they don't get as many visitors as you would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that kind of even ties back to what you were saying earlier about, showing up, but you're really looking for what the real need is. And if I can tie that to some scripture, passage I really like is where Jesus, he's traveling. It's near the end of his life, and he's traveling towards Jerusalem, and he's passing through Jericho. And there's blind Bartimaeus yelling at the gates, He's yelling out for help. And, he's like, what's going on? And people are like, oh, Jesus of Nazareth, he's passing by. And so he starts screaming for Jesus, and people try to silence him. They're like, be quiet, But Jesus says, bring him to me. And he gets over to Jesus. And for me, I'm like, if a blind guy's coming to me and I have the ability, I'm just going to heal him. But Jesus doesn't do that. He says, what do you want? So he gives the guy the dignity to voice what he wants, like just express his own needs, so letting people share, this is what I need, instead of assuming we know what they need, So even just being able to go to elderly or showing up to these kid camps you're hosting and be like, what can we do to serve you? Like what's important to you? That's a real value of Jesus that y'all are expressing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for doing this podcast. We had a great time. I had a great time. And thank you guys for subscribing, and we will see you next time. Thank you, Willie B and Drew.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peace.
All right. Talk to you guys later.